Thanks everybody for joining us tonight for School Psych Podcast. What we're going to be talking about tonight is kind of that balance between work and life and maintaining that, and what are some of our experiences with things like burnout and how to avoid that. So my name is Rachel. I'm a school psychologist and I'm working in Maryland right now. Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm a school psychologist working in Connecticut. I want to tell you guys a little bit about how to participate. Please join us with your ideas, your thoughts, and your comments either on Facebook on the School Psych Your School Psychologist page or School Psych Podcast page. Just comment anywhere you find or send a message, or on Twitter using the hashtag psychedpodcast. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a school psych working in New York State. So we had a little poll on our Facebook page asking you guys out there what your experience was with your caseloads, workload. And we didn't ask about number of evals you do per year, because that's just quite an intense conversation. We asked more about are you able to get everything you need to do done in your workday, and do you have to cut corners? And it sounds like the majority of people, 15 votes, almost about 45% of participants, try to prioritize things to get the most important things done, but it means they're usually bringing work home and possibly working overtime. So it's most psychs, they're not able to get their work done in the workday without bringing things home. 5 people can get everything done but have to cut corners to do it. So they're not bringing work home for various reasons, but it's not like they're doing everything to the way they want to do it, perfect world, best practice type of thing. We had a lot of ties for the third place, 3 votes. 3 people can get everything done and don't have to stay late or anything, so yay. 3 people can't get everything done but don't mind bringing some work home or staying late. They work extra hours, blah, 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 so we can kind of bring them up to the first one. And then 3 people can't get everything done, but their district is not supportive. So it's kind of an awkward, it's not getting done, and the district is not appreciative. And then 2 people can't get everything done, but their district is supportive, so maybe there's a shortage, that kind of thing. So most of us are working really hard beyond the contract day, work day kind of thing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And recently I posted, I think, was it yesterday or today, an article from NPR, a sort of opinion blog where they interviewed a special ed teacher who was just talking about how much she, loved her program in school and wanted to go back to work because she started out as the parent of a special ed student, and then she went back for her master's degree, and loves the teaching and the working with children, but feels so overwhelmed with the paperwork and the regulations and the data collection, and was talking about how that overwhelm can make her feel like, maybe she's had enough, maybe she needs to stop. And it's so sad, because the article also was about the shortage of teachers, but I think according to best practices, there's a shortage of school psychologists too. We certainly have more students on our caseloads than the recommended number, the number that NASP recommends, and we have fewer school psychologists in our buildings than we would like. So I think we can all really relate to that situation. So things that help are when our districts and our administrators are supportive, when there's collaboration. What do you guys find helps you feel when you can't get everything done? What helps you feel better about it?
I definitely feel that having a supportive district, that makes a huge difference, because if you're not able to get things done and people around you are understanding and realize and acknowledge that, hey, you're working your butt off, that kind of pat on the back once in a while really helps a lot. When you're in a district that doesn't see that, or you or people around you are getting in trouble or getting talked to about not getting things done, even though you've expressed that there's too much, I can't do everything, that's when it's really frustrating. So I think that just being surrounded by a good team, a good district, that really helps with burnout and sticking with it.
I think having administrators who understand our jobs and our roles to help create appropriate workloads is huge. Like where I work, the workloads are pretty darn great because I think in large part because there's people higher up who understand and value our roles, and so they give us appropriate caseloads so we can actually do a good job, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't vote in our poll, but I feel a little bad that, you know, I don't have to do an insane amount of evals a year and stuff. But it's so different. Like, you know, that's just one special ed placement. Like, you can go somewhere else and people are stretched thin. So it's so district by district and building by building.
It is, and I think, you know, lately on the in the school psychology forum, there's been so much participation, and I've noticed a lot of times when either graduate students or potential graduate students of school psychology post and ask about, you know, what's your experience? Do you love the field? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of negativity, and it makes me cringe because I think it's such a great field, and I'm so enthusiastic about it. But you know, those things make such a difference. You know, the district that you're in, and whether you have support, and whether there is enough collaboration, or you have the ability to, you know, have some autonomy in your role. All those things matter a lot. So for those people that don't have that kind of support, they're really unhappy, and they'll say things like, "Oh no, don't get into the field. It's terrible. You'll be overworked. You'll be stuck under a pile of paperwork. You'll never see kids. It's, you know, not what I thought." And that I think that voice is really loud, but I think there are a lot of us that find ways to make it work. And like in your district, Anna, and I feel really lucky and grateful because I happen to work in a private school, so it's really different for me. And I still feel like I work, you know, a lot, and I'm not able to get everything done that's on my list to, you know, at the level that I'd like it to be done. But I prioritize, and the important things I get done. And for me, it's just it's a great situation. You're always gonna, you know, want to do more, and there's always going to be more work and more students that need care, but to me it's great. It's just a natural part of wanting to be your best. Burnout is just natural, I think, but overcoming it is also natural.
And I think that it really it depends too on where you are in your life. As far as, you know, when I first started fresh out of grad school, I didn't have kids or, you know, a family unit kind of like that I was okay staying late and doing some extra work and bringing some work home. And because I do enjoy my work. I like writing reports, which is weird, I know, but I like to get into my report groove, and I enjoy, you know, looking at the numbers and thinking outside of the box and doing that type of thing. And so early on, I did work late for sure, and I did bring things home. And then I had my first kid, and it kind of shifted a little bit where I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, ooh, it's almost 4 o'clock. I want to go and pick up my son from daycare, and that became my priority. You know, I worked as hard as, and I do work as hard as I can within my work hours, and then I want to go home and be with my family. And I know a lot of people, you know, think that way, and I have to wonder if I started off, you know, if when I first got out of grad school, if I had that family unit at that point, you know, if I would have been as gung-ho about staying late and doing those things. So myself, I kind of shifted as my life kind of shifted, and my priorities changed, and things just were different. And so I've had to find ways to maybe cut corners and prioritize and do that a little bit. And maybe I'm not always writing the report, the ideal report that I want to write, and doing the item analysis that I want to do. But I'm kind of like, at the end of the day, it's 4 o'clock, I'm going home. So that helps me a lot, just to say, I'm done now.
That makes sense to me, and I think I can a little bit address that question of what would it have been like if you had already had kids, because I went back to school after I already had 4 children. So I have sort of the opposite experience. I was lucky and to be able to stay home with my kids for a long time when they were really little. But then I went back to school, and I was so eager to get into my career, but my kids were already in school all day. So they weren't little children. They weren't home. I didn't have that sense of, like I'm going to miss that next milestone.
Right.
So it made a big difference. I still, really prize my downtime with my family, weekends and dinner times when I get home. But it's different now. They're older. My youngest is 13. So to me, it's great timing. It's a little strange though, because everybody, like my cohort, they're all really young and they don't have families yet, and they have, just different perspectives on some things. So it's interesting.
I had my girl summer before my internship year, so I had an infant, 8 weeks old. Like I had to take her to daycare and start internship, and it was so heart-wrenching. So I had that feeling like I'm trying to prove myself and learn so much, but I want to get home and get to my baby and everything. It was so hard. And honestly, I think that the intern before me worked overtime and really went above and beyond, where I did maybe 40, 50 avails my internship year, but I wasn't trying to do a bunch of extra stuff. I had my counseling, I had my testing, I had my internship checklist, but I wasn't trying to be crazy. And one of the two supervisors I got some criticism from her. She was sort of underwhelmed with the amount of evaluations I was doing the one day a week I was at that school, because the previous intern had really killed it. So I think it was challenging because I did not work insane hours, and I think that I did not get a letter of recommendation from that woman because of it. So that you have to sacrifice sometimes for your family, and I think where were you, Rachel, when it was the craziest workload ever? I feel like if I was an intern there, I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, because, so last year, yes, I was in Texas, and it was rough. And now I can talk a little bit more freely about it because I'm no longer working there. Now I'm in Maryland. I'm kind of far away in distance, but the district had significant problems to the point where I was like, I don't want my name on some of this paperwork because this is going to go due process, and this is going to go due process, and I don't want to be associated with this. I've had just way extreme amounts of where I had 4 high schools and 30 counseling students and all this testing, and it was just too much. And I think that when it comes down to it, you need to advocate for yourself and really make it clear to supervisors and people above you that this is not right. There's something wrong here with the system, with how things are going. It's not just me. I knew that everyone around me was overworked. They were understaffed. And yeah, if I was an intern in that experience, I think that it would have really upset me even more than I was terribly upset last year. But I think it would have upset me a whole lot more going into a field and feeling like maybe I'm not so good at this. Maybe this was not the right career. Maybe I can't keep up, and maybe I made a mistake and spent 3 years in grad school or 2, and maybe I need a new career. Luckily, I had done 5 years before that and knew what I was doing. I knew that I was good at what I did, and I worked hard. And so when I said to them, I've got way too much. This is not appropriate. I can't cover this many schools. I can't do all the things that you want me to do. I can't hold all these annual meetings and run all these meetings like you want me to do and schedule all these things, and keep up with everything and do it appropriately and be legally defensible. And so it just got to the point where every month I would send an email to those above me and say, just letting you know, I can't keep up with this. This is not right, and just documenting. And I had a whole stack of emails that I printed out by the end of me just saying, because that way I wanted to be covered, that if something did go down legally, that I could say, I've been telling you guys all the time. But the interns that I saw in that district, they worked their butts off, and they were just exhausted, and I felt terrible for them. But you have to kind of advocate for yourself, and then if things aren't getting better, that's I left, and I know that a lot of people can't leave where they're at because either they have family or that's just, it's tough to pack up and go to a different district. But just anybody who's in that situation and is feeling burnt out, and that what's going on is not right, and you're so overworked to the point that you just can't function, send out your application, send out your resume, and just see what happens, and consider packing up and going. And I met with people, the assistant superintendent, and sat down and explained the whole situation. And other people also did that too. We kind of rallied and all had meetings. And there was a lot of promises that, oh, we're going to get better, we're going to hire more next year. And I just kind of said, you know what, I think this is too big a mess to be fixed in a year. And I left. And I've talked to people who have stayed, and it's still a mess there. So yeah, that's a piece of advice I would have for anyone that's in a really bad situation, is send out applications and send out a resume, and just keep your options open, and know that you don't have to. Hopefully, situation varies person by person, but just to consider other districts, that it doesn't have to be that way. I had people tell me that, well, you're in education, and so you don't expect to work 40 hours a week. You're in this field. You shouldn't expect to not bring all this work home. You signed up for this. It's like, no, I didn't sign up for this. And I'm not going to kill myself doing this when I know that it's wrong, and I shouldn't have to be working excessively to get this done. So that's kind of my little soapbox there. I feel like you need to advocate for yourself. And now I'm in a state with a union, and there's very clear lines of how much you should should be working, and the psychs before me have really advocated for themselves and stood up and written letters, and they got more positions this year. And that's how things get done. Is you can't just sit back and just take all the work home and suffer in silence. I feel that you have to speak up, because nothing's going to change, and then the next intern after you, or the next person that comes in after you, is going to be subjected to the same type of treatment. So
yeah, I so agree. I think that what you said is so important about having a kind of clear vision of who you are, and what you value and what you bring to the table, as well as then communicating your limitations, with your administration and your colleagues, is so important. And I feel as though in the business world, in the corporate world, people understand that. Leaders understand that you can't, suck the life out of your employees and have this huge turnover rate and have everybody miserable and still have a decent bottom line. You can't run a company that way. And I think more and more, like with the Google model and all these really innovative, successful companies that prioritize their human capital and take care of their people and make sure that they're happy in a holistic sense so that they can be their best at work. I think that model needs to be applied to education, because our educators and our administrators and our school psychologists and everyone that works in the building, like you said, we get into this field for the right reasons. Nobody gets into the field, for the huge paycheck or the anything like that, the wonderful reputation or the fame, or so we're in it for the right reasons. And if we can sort of band together and understand how to be our best at work, ultimately the bottom line is our kids, our students, and they will be better for us being happy. I recently, after my internship year, I took this course on Coursera.org, which I'm a huge fan of Coursera. I love it. It's free. It's on, all online at your own time, and you really can just get out of it whatever you put in. There's a course from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business by Dr. Stuart Friedman, and it's the Total Leadership course. And it's from a business perspective, but it's about leadership in your life and how to get the most out of a work-life balance, how to be really productive and successful at work by making sure that all your domains are match your own values and your needs. So I put some links for some of his sort of self-assessments on the School Psych podcast page. I really recommend you check them out. One of them is the 4 circles, and what Dr. Friedman says is there are 4 domains of our lives. There's home, work, community, and self. And we have to be really aware of our priorities. And so if you can give 100% of a commitment, what percentage of that would be towards work, home, self, and community that would make you happy? And when I did the exercise, I kind of figured, well, kind of close to a little bit more on the home side for my kids and my family, and a little bit more on the self. I know myself, and there are some things that I need. I'm a runner. I need that time, So home and self were big. But if I can manage like those two, 30%, 30, 20, I can be that 20% that I pour into my work, that 20% of my life can be at the level where I feel really good about it. And like many of us, I'm a perfectionist. So my 20% that I give at work will be great if I don't feel like I'm taking from those other places. So Stu Friedman has some really great quizzes and exercises for you to figure out for you what your balance would look like.
I totally checked them out. There's my circle. Oh, can you see it? You can't really see it. My home is big, and then work, and then personal, and then communities like this.
Yeah.
I took your other quiz too, your leadership score, right?
Yeah.
And my score was like a 76. It's below the national average.
Oh no.
Give you like a famous person that you relate to, and mine is like Bruce Springsteen, which is the most like low key of the.
Bruce is awesome.
It was really interesting to think about yourself in that way.
Right. That's so funny. I took that one too, and I got someone that I can't even remember, that I didn't know who he was. He was a military person, a Navy SEAL, I think. And the reason is my least, sort of my weakest score was in change, innovation, I think they called it, right? So I love when, like, I feel like I can predict what tomorrow and next week are going to look like, and I get really nervous to take big risks, to make innovative changes that could pay off, So that was my weakest area, and I think that's accurate. That's probably right. So if any place I need to lean into, it's probably the innovation. But you guys approaching me for this podcast was a really big step for me. So thank you. I think my innovation score might go up next year.
And this podcast was partially a result of burnout. Am I right, Rachel?
Yes, totally.
You were looking for passion in the field that you weren't getting at work.
Yeah.
And so you hooked me and then Rebecca.
I said, you guys have to come and help me do this. And it's funny, Anna, because I remember talking to you first, and you're like, okay, maybe. And so we both kind of agreed, and then we kind of stalled and didn't really we weren't actually taking the lunge and just setting a date and doing it. And we were like, we need somebody to help motivate us. And then we found Rebecca. We're like, she's an overachiever, and she's a go-getter, and she's going to make us do this, and she's going to help us out, and she did.
That's so funny. I feel like the least likely person, but yeah, I think sometimes that's what you need. You need to take a leap of faith, but you need a couple of hands to hold. And I encourage all of you out there to find that person in your building and who will push you to do what you're a little worried about doing, to say, like Rachel said, this is too much for me, or to say, I'm really good at this. I could really apply my skills in this area if you could give me a chance to work on this initiative. I think those things, we have them in us, but we need the support and collaboration of our colleagues and friends and families.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a personal burnout story to share too. Like the workload thing is huge, and that's the advocacy and all that stuff is so important. But even when I had a manageable workload, shit just went down, and it was exhausting. We had 2 unexpected student deaths. in a year, and then I had one of my students attempted suicide and was hospitalized and returned from the hospital broken, and I had to see them for counseling every day. I felt a responsibility to make sure that this child transitioned and didn't attempt suicide again and everything. And so I was so burnt out from these experiences that were my job and that, I'm trained in whatever to do, but it was just like too much. It was too depressing. It was emotionally draining for me to care for, the people who lost students and then care for my student who thankfully, didn't die but was still very, very needy. So that was so hard for me that year, a few years back, that I went to counseling and I I was deteriorating in my own self-care and all that stuff, and I ended up needing to take care of myself more. So on our event page, there's 2 links. Both are socialwork.buffalo.edu. I think a lot of the work we do overlaps with social work, even, the mental health support piece really does. And so you could there's a quiz, it's like 12 questions. How burnt out are you? And, you might know the answer to that question before you take the quiz, but that was a quiz that I took as part of my crisis training, and it's helpful just to think about your feelings and to go through that. And there's another quiz too that has more areas about yourself, including burnout, that's on the event page as well. So if you guys out there in the world feel like your caseload is draining you, feel free to take the quiz and check in on yourself. And then there's things that you can do to take care of yourself so you can take care of the kids. There's a link that we posted on the page. It's an APA link. There's like 4 things they suggest if you're feeling burnt out, and seeking counseling is one of them. And I'm proud to have done it, because it helped. And yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's great. And I also posted the links to those quizzes, the burnout quizzes, in the comments on my last post on School Psych to Your School Psychologist. And I think that it's really, that self-assessment piece of it is really important, because I think by the time you realize that you're really burnt out, you've gone really far down that road. And if we were just a little bit more aware as we were getting there, as we were just giving a little bit more and a little bit more, maybe we could be able to get in front of it a little bit. I also think, one of the things that really helps me is this collaboration specifically, but also just Facebook and Twitter and the NASP community boards and the School Psychology Forum. Just knowing that if something's on my mind, I could post it out to, 10,000 other school psychologists just for a little support, or even for someone to say, oh, gee, that stinks, I know how that feels, makes a huge difference to me. So I encourage you guys to just reach out and use all those resources online. I find them really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, last year when I was going through just the stress of Texas, that district in Texas, I used the 2 of you a lot. So the 3 of us have a Voxer chat going, right? And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Voxer, but it's kind of like a walkie-talkie voicemail type app thing. So you send each other voice messages. And so I would be like, oh, I'm so stressed out today. I would just vent, just in the moment when I'm feeling, when somebody comes into my office and says, you need to hold this meeting, and you need to do it by, the end of the week. When they leave, I can pick up my phone and be like, Rebecca, Anna, I'm so stressed out. Like, just having that venting session kind of helps me a lot, for sure, having somebody else to talk to. And I know when you first get out of grad school, at least with my cohort, I was pretty tight with them initially. And then as you go your separate ways, you kind of lose that cohesiveness with your cohort. And so you do need to seek out other people who will understand what you're going through, type of thing, whether that's through counseling or a forum or Facebook or something of that nature, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like at first, there was like internship year comfort, like we would all discuss online with my cohort, and But then at some point I felt like I'm supposed to know this stuff already. I shouldn't be reaching out. And like we talk about this amongst ourselves. We have to remind ourselves we're not like experts. Like we don't all know everything, and being able to reach out is so huge. Even if it's a private group, you know, if you don't want to do it publicly. There's some private groups out there. Have you guys joined them yet? I haven't.
Yes, I have. I kind of forget the names of them. I think one is Psyched to Psych, and there's a bunch of them. And yeah, I've joined them, you know, just to be a part of it, just to have that outlet. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps to motivate me too, and help me find inspiration. I haven't joined the private groups yet because I feel like the Psychology Forum, as busy as that Facebook page is, that's on my newsfeed a lot, probably because I'm clicking on the post a lot. So Facebook's like, oh, she likes this forum, so let's put more on her newsfeed. But anytime I'm on Facebook, I'm constantly seeing School Psych Forum questions, and so I follow that, and that inspires me and keeps me motivated in my work and my day-to-day, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a really great thought. I'm going to try that tomorrow when I go into work, type of thing.
Yeah.
And speaking of tomorrow,
oh man, I know. You know, I have to say, I'm only on year 3, so I still have like all of that newbie, you know, excitement, and I still get butterflies a lot of times at work, and I never worry about, you know, asking for help or asking questions, because they're just, I don't have that feeling like, oh, I've done this 100 times or a million times. But starting at year 3, I do sort of get that Sunday blues feeling, like, oh my, like that feeling like, okay, I need to rev up. I need to get my energy together, because the work week is hard. It's long and it's busy, and you know, there are important things at stake, and so getting that Sunday night momentum, that mindset shift is newly a challenge for me in year 3. Last year, I felt like I was so just thrilled all the time that I was like 100% every single day. A Sunday was like a Tuesday. It didn't matter. But I'm starting to really take my weekends as downtime and family time, and then I need to recalibrate on Sunday night. So I feel that. To you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the night before break is over is worse, because it's just so nice to be off and do whatever you want whenever you want, and doesn't matter what time you get up in the morning. You can wear yoga pants all day. You can do whatever you want. So hard.
Right.
Like, I need to do laundry right now. Like,
yeah.
I've got the blues.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was in my internship year, we had a big department, and one of the psychologists who had kids at home, she had to go to do an observation off campus, and she said she was, you know, standing in the front of the building, and there were all these moms who had dropped off their kids, and they were all in their exercise clothes, and they were like headed to the gym together, and they were talking about the Starbucks that they were going to get after the gym, and she said, I was so jealous. Here I am in my suit getting ready to do the observation, and my kids are, you know, in their school, and but that year in internship, I had just come out of my yoga pants, so I was like, are you kidding me? You know, I couldn't really relate to that. I guess, you know, it's about the balance. It's about having a little bit of the time in each of those domains, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When we go overboard, it's always too much, no matter what domain it is.
For sure. Moderation is the key to everything.
But
this year is my first year as a 12-month employee. And so while you guys were on break, I did have a couple days that I had to come in and work. I had 3 days last week that I worked. And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about that. Especially with my husband being a teacher and him being able to stay home, although it's not a picnic when you've got an infant at home and a toddler. It's not like, you know, he would be kicking back, relaxing the whole time. But I didn't think I was going to like it, but I went in and with a quiet building because there was no teachers. It was just me and the custodians. I was able to get a lot done. And now I think that's kind of helped my transition back from break because I have had a couple days in a row now off. And I feel caught up on things, and I feel ahead of the game in some things. And I've sent my emails, and I'm waiting just for people to respond back to me type of thing. And I feel like the ball isn't in my court with any things that I'm juggling right now. And so it's kind of nice. You know, I mean, I think I would be really cranky about it if I took the work home over break and did it and felt like I wasn't, you know, being paid for it, or I wasn't, you know, that I shouldn't have to be doing this. Why am I sitting here doing this? But the fact that, you know, I'm a 12-month employee, that's what I agreed to. I'm going to go in and get it done. It sat a little bit better with me, so I survived.
I had dinner a couple nights ago with 4 other psychs, a couple I work with, a couple I don't, and 2 of them were like, oh, I just started my report this week. Like, they were working on break, and the other one's like, oh, I haven't started mine, but I got to start that today. Like, so there's definitely some, like, last week of break blues that was going on with the ladies just because that pressure to get stuff done on the downtime was there. So you lucked out in that way. You don't have that.
And I hate that about our field, that so many of us, like, that's just the norm, that we're taking reports home and working on them. And I'm really starting to feel very strongly that we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't have to be doing that. And if we are doing that, then we need to look at what's going on. Do we just have too much and the district needs to make some changes? You know, are we not being so efficient? I don't think that's the case for most of us. I think all of us are pretty efficient at what we do. I don't know, but it's frustrating to me that I feel bad that we often have to do this. And when I have a tight timeline, I mean, I'm gonna bring the report home because I'm not gonna miss my timeline, and I hate that feeling, and I hate that that's what it comes down to. In North Carolina, one year was my last year there. Everyone was really feeling the crunch and was really complaining and really upset about how much work was being taken home. And our lead psych said, okay, let's stop taking work home. And everyone was kind of like, what? What do you mean? And he just basically laid it out that they're not going to hire more people if you keep getting it done. If you keep bringing all this work home and you get it done, why are they going to give us more psychs? They're not. So we kind of agreed that work to the rule thing, and I've seen some teachers with unions, and when I do that, you know, 4 o'clock comes, your time comes, you close your laptop, you leave, and if you miss your timeline because of it, you miss your timeline, and that's sending kind of a message to the district. I think that that's kind of a strong stance to take. The thought of missing a deadline just, like, gives me heart palpitations, and I've never had it come to that. But I think that that's a consideration in some places where people aren't listening, that, you know, this is impossible to do. I don't know.
And, like, if you have tenure, like, I know different states don't have unions, don't have tenure, but, like, I have tenure. It's got pretty good job security, right? So, like, I might be comfortable doing that. I would like there to be other psychs. Like, I like how the group of you did it, but if, you know, someone didn't have job security and they were on their own, that would be so hard to do. Like, I feel like you'd have to band together. Like, that guy suggested.
Yeah.
Or maybe at least be clear about your intentions, because I think it's one thing if you kind of come in with this attitude that I work, you know, 8 to 5:30, and then I don't do a thing because that's my time. It's sort of like this. It's like a very negative, you know, outlook. But if your intention is that I want to give my 110% while I'm at work, but I also want to give my 110% when I'm at home with my family. So here are my boundaries. You know, I won't. You won't get a weekend email from me, but you'll get it, you know, Sunday evening between 6 and 8, I check my email. And, you know, Monday morning at 6 a.m., I'm logged on or whatever. I mean, I think that the intention piece of it is really important, because I think all of us, we're grateful for our jobs, and we we like our work and we love our students, and that should be primary. And when that's primary, it's okay to say, but I also love my family, and they're really important to me too, and taking care of them and taking care of myself helps inform who I am at work. And that's, a really different message.
Self-care is one of those strategies on that APA article about burnout.
Yeah.
Boom. So it all kind of goes together.
Absolutely.
How about wine? Is wine a strategy?
It is sometimes.
It wasn't on there. But how you practice self-care, I guess it's up to you.
Yeah.
As I'm like sipping my cup. No, this is water, I promise.
Oh, wine.
Funny. What are your top, say two go-to self-care strategies? Mine are, my first one is I'm a runner. If I had a really hard day, even if I get out for a couple of 20 minutes, a couple miles or whatever, I feel better. And then I have 3 dogs, so they're always really understanding. If I curl up on the rug with them, they usually help me feel better. So those are probably my top 2. How about you guys?
Let's see. I like to nap. If I have a free moment, I'm going to take a nap. That and reading. Mm-hmm.
Cats, big surprise, right? Okay. And spending time with them is very therapeutic. They're so soft and fluffy.
Yeah.
Like, as far as, like, I think strategies is, like, more cognitive behavioral. Like, I get so down on myself. Like, if I realize I made a mistake or something goes wrong, it doesn't meet my expectations. So I have to think about what went wrong, identify the problem, and then figure out what I'm going to do next time it happens or what I'm going to do to correct it. And then I have to, like, disengage mentally. Because I can't, I will just ruminate and worry and be stuck on something all day. So I have to go through the problem-solving process and then stop thinking about it. Just, like, shut that thought down. Because that really doesn't go anywhere good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Amen. All right. I was hoping we would have some audience participation, even if it's just like, I don't want to go back to work. Where are you guys out there?
Give us your complaints. Whine to us. We want to hear it.
No, they're having wine right now. Like, that's what they're doing. That's what I'm. No, we've got a handful of viewers, but if you're not watching us live, if you're watching this, it's the night before break, and we're up here talking for some reason.
Yeah, and we feel your pain if you're out there, enjoying your last few minutes of pajama time and TV and hot cocoa and whatever. We get it, and let us know anytime if you watch this later on during the week. Comment on the Facebook pages or on Twitter and let us know how Monday went, your first week back, and keep connected because we like hearing from you.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then I think our next episode is going to be January 17th, I want to say I wrote down. Does that make sense? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that looks about right. But we definitely want topic suggestions or presenter suggestions from you guys. So send us a message on Facebook, post it on Facebook, because if there's somebody that you want to see on the podcast, we'll email them and say, hey, want to come talk with us? And we like doing that. So let us know what you're interested in.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. Well, get some sleep, ladies.
Happy Sunday night to everyone out there, and I hope everyone had a really wonderful holiday break, winter break, and we'll have a great new year at work.
Mm-hmm.